What a wild weekend and ride that continues for BYU basketball, who continue to climb up the metrics. And we'll find out where the Cougars are ranked in the AP poll later. They're a top 10 team in net and in Ken Palmer ratings. But, Jarom, that's a conversation that we should pause.
Well, till topic 2.
Because the transfer portal is open. And it is a gaping chasmus. Yes.
I feel like
wondrous thing.
Stargate. When the portal or something.
The Dr. Pepper commercial that handles the transfer portal is so well done. You've seen it, right? It's very, very clever. Yes. Yeah. And while they joke and it's tongue-in-cheek, there are some realities there. Like everything is free game. It's free agency. So with that in mind,
moral agency. And
we remind you that What's Trending is sponsored by BYU Food to Go, the MVP of your next event. I present you this question. What are the top priorities in the transfer portal for BYU football to take a step forward?
O-line coach and tight end coach. No, just kidding. Okay, first and foremost, if Aiden Robbins doesn't return, then you need a running back. But if he comes back, you're probably good at that position.
So does he
Although
have
you
to
could always use more.
Does he have to sit out a year if he opted to leave?
Well, is he a grad transfer? I think from Louisville, it was his one-time transfer.
Okay.
If he's, I think he might be in grad school. He might be a grad transfer. I don't know. But he ain't going somewhere else. My understanding with him is it's probably he's going pro.
Okay.
And less likely that he would return.
Okay.
But I would hope that he would return. The taste we got from Oklahoma and even Oklahoma State was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was some good steak there. So hopefully Aiden Robbins returns. I'm not banking on him returning personally. But if he did, that'd be great. So I think another star running back to pair with L.J. Martin and some young guys there, that'd be great. Don't forget Hinckley Ropati is going to come back from an injury next year, and you have Miles Davis and so on. So you have some young guys. Who knows who bounces in the portal? We'll see. Always O-line, D-line. Every year, always O-line, D-line. O-line, obviously, you need to get better in terms of skill set. This group struggled together. Hopefully, a capable coach can come in. Is that Jeff Grimes? If he comes in with a very similar group, what does that look like? But
BYU needs a ton of bodies on the offensive line.
We anticipate Kingsley Suamatia will go pro. Paul Maile is out of eligibility. Will Connor Pay return? You have returners in Waylon Lapuahu and Caleb Etienne and others. Jake Eichhorn, they're excited about. Young guy, a little undersized, getting bigger. He could be good in the future. We'll see. D-line, outside of Kairos Tonga, you haven't had that game-changing future kind of NFL guy, it feels like, much in the 7-8 years of Kalani Sitake. Always D-line. You can never have enough good D-linemen, tackles and ends. Second year of Sione Puha. Full year of these guys being on this. Jay Hill as a recruiter. What can he do in year 2 with that defense? And then quarterback. I do think you need to bring in like a capable Power 5. It'd be nice, proven guy that's looking for an opportunity to get to the NFL. He and Jake Retzloff, whoever that could be, he and Jake Retzloff line it up and they compete for the starting spot. And then you want 2 capable dudes going into the season. We didn't know we had Jake Retzloff, and then he had to play the hardest starting 4 games in BYU history as a starter ever. The Big 12 number 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, no BYU quarterback has walked into their first setting in college football like Jake Retzloff had to for BYU this year. So I'm excited for a full offseason of that. That's where I look. Certainly there are other places that need stuff, but that's the priority and the top of it for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on the offensive line. And I hope that a guy like Connor Pay returns.
That'd be great.
Because
good player.
He absolutely was the steady Eddie of the offensive line with all of the moves around him, with Caleb Etienne shifting and the injuries at certain points to Waylon Lapuaho. Like, pieces were moving all around him, but he was just steady and consistent and graded out fairly well. According to the PFF numbers. So I hope that Connor chooses to come back. But if he doesn't, you're staring at an offensive line for BYU that will likely need 4 new starters. That is a tall task to address. Because if you lose Kingsley Suamataia and Paul Maile and Connor Pay and Braden Keim, who are you bringing back? You're bringing back Waylon Lapuaho. And Caleb Etienne, who has started games, but he had been relegated to the bench until Kingsley opted not to play in the final game, and then he was put back on the starting lineup.
2 guys who have started several, yeah.
But to me, that is like priority number 1. Even more so than quarterback, just because you have to have a line that can establish a run game and protect whoever the quarterback is back there. I know that quarterbacks, by nature of the position they play, can be the instantaneous game changer. But for me, just because of the number of players that are going to be needed up front, that is priority number one on the offensive line. If you get some guys in the portal and can convince Connor Pay to come back, and Jake Eichhorn takes the next step, and Caleb Etienne can figure out some things, then just maybe you have that much more of an argument to bring back a guy like Aiden Robbins and say, come run behind this line with a new offensive line coach, whoever it is, whether it's Jeff Grimes or somebody else. BYU should be better. So is that enough to get a guy like Robbins to come back?
I don't think that's one of the factors for him personally.
I start on the offensive line, and I'm with you on the defensive line. BYU's pass rush and getting to the quarterback and the disruptive plays over the past few years just have not been nearly high enough in terms of just numbers and the metrics of being disruptive in the front. So the one that's really stark to me is at linebacker. You think about the experience that BYU is going to lose at linebacker in terms of number of tackles, number of starts. Between Max Tooley, Ben Bywater, and A.J. Vongpachan, that is a chasm now that BYU has to figure out at linebacker.
Yep.
I know they're excited about Isaiah Glasker and Ace Kafusi and Harrison Taggart. Like, there are some guys that played, but look at how much experience, just how many games between those three.
And these numbers are this year. If we did career.
Ben Bywater was the leading tackler for BYU the previous 2 seasons and was pacing to be that probably again this year before he got injured against Kansas and ultimately had to shut it down. But that, to me, is very concerning because BYU is typically really, really solid and good at that position, and that's kind of where the leaders emerge and the vocal leaders. Like, who's the guy at linebacker now? Who's the guy? Is it Harrison Taggart?
You can bring in another AJ or two, right? And then you can.
That's where the portal can absolutely help out.
Yes, and I think BYU will need to at that position. Yes, yeah, I think they will. Like, I've never been concerned about linebackers at BYU, and I'm not right now. Like, I believe they'll bring in people that are good for it. It's never been that Brady Papinga came up with it first, and it's just really good. He said there's some about that like intermountain region, mountain man type that BYU can recruit well, which is offensive line, tight ends, and linebackers. BYU's never had an issue getting quality at those positions.
But when was the last time they lost 3 starters the same year?
1970.
That's tough. Yeah. Like, that's tough to overcome. And so I think BYU will have good linebackers.
Ben Bywater was out so long, he wasn't even the majority starter. So he is a huge loss, but there were people who were playing in his stead for the majority of the season. So it's not like it was like all 3 played every game. You know, that wasn't
Can't help but circle that. And then, the transfer portal additions of Cam Garrett and Eddie Heckard last year. They were plug and play, awesome players for Jay Hill's defense. Eddie's not coming back. That one stings. I wish so much he had one more year of eligibility, right? Yeah. He's done. He's on to the NFL.
Cam as well.
I mean, there are a lot of different positions that BYU could use some impact transfer portal players right now. Linebacker, cornerback, quarterback, offensive line, defensive line.
And here's the thing. You can go get whatever you need or want. You can. There's not a limit on how many good players you can bring in. A lot of that has to do with NIL. A lot of it has to do with fit, obviously, certain skill level, but also, like, do they want to be at BYU? When it's a guy, though, that's like a grad transfer or even one-time transfer, and he is going to be a senior, you are literally renting the player for 4 months. That is the reality of the situation. Ideally, you get people who can be here a couple of years, but you also need a few that just want 1 year to prove something, like A.J. Vongpachan. No one's arguing that wasn't a good move for BYU. That was a great move for BYU. More A.J. Vongpachans.
I'll say this before we move on to basketball, and because we have seen basketball excel at this, the core and the nucleus sticking together. Like, BYU didn't lose a ton of guys on the basketball team to the transfer. They didn't go anywhere. They all stayed. They've been here essentially.
They lost Gideon, George, and Rudy Williams to graduation.
Right? Mm-hmm. And Rudy was a rented player for his final year.
I know the academic department's not going to like that I phrased it in that way. That is the reality of the situation.
If the nucleus can stay, meaning if BYU football can convince everybody that can stay, who is capable and a good player to stay, that will help. Because if you start to lose more of those players, and then again it just becomes like a mass implementation of 30 transfer portal players, BYU is going to be in the same situation they were last year, which is, man, it's really tough to build chemistry and to build a culture when you just have so many new moving pieces. So can BYU limit the need to add 25 plus transfer portal players, and maybe it's only like 15 or 16 because your core has stayed? Like, there's value in that.
Sure.
There's value in having the players that were on the field against Oklahoma and Oklahoma State build and grow and stay in the system and work under Jay Hill's defense for a second year. It's not rocket science. You take how much better do you feel in any job that you work in year 3 compared to year 1? You're way more confident and way more capable, regardless of the profession.
But I'm not opposed to bringing in like a really good set of players.
I'm not saying
you know what
that.
I mean? Like continuity totally matters. I'm not arguing against that, but I am saying, listen, if there's like a baller and there's not continuity with said player, I don't really care that much. Like, bring in the awesome dude. If you bring in a dude the caliber of another good player, like, let's go. We'll figure out continuity, especially if it's a rental. If it's like a 4th year, 5th year guy that has the 1 year, you figure it out.
What is the proper amount? That is almost an impossible question.
Depends on the person and sort of how they fit in, and you cannot quantify that.
Keep your core if you can. Keep your core. Keep those guys from late. A guy like Aiden Robbins or a guy like Connor Pay, like those guys, if you stay, that helps a lot.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, Aiden feels like he's gone to me, but it'd be nice to have him for sure. Okay, topic 2, men's hoops. Number 2 in the first net ranking. What? Number 2? That's awesome. Number 8 in KenPom, number 19 in the AP poll. Which metric or ranking tells the story of the season right now?
It's still the KenPom rating because it's the most intricate and the most detailed. And when you're calculating adjusted offensive efficiency and doing the same defensively and looking at margin, and it takes into consideration like what actually is an away game and what's a semi-home game. And I just love the way that Ken Pomeroy has it set up. BYU 7-0. They destroyed Fresno State on a semi-home floor at the Delta Center. And I mean, they're 14.5-point favorite. They doubled that. This is what BYU has done to teams that they're supposed to beat up on. It has been like blowout city on top of the quality wins. And I think Ken Pomeroy's metric takes that into account the most accurately. They climbed as high as number 6 in the Ken Pom rating. Number 8 today, but the fact that they're in the top 10 this early is just unbelievable. So
we keep asking, how much better will it get? Well,
it keeps getting better.
BYU can get to number 1 and everything. Okay?
It keeps getting better.
Not in the AP poll, but in the other metrics, yeah.
I didn't think that I would see BYU climb as high as number 6. Right? I was like, okay, this is probably the pinnacle for the KenPom
Which I think is the highest in the history for BYU and KenPom.
Yes.
And number 2 in net is the highest in the net of what? This is year 4, I think.
This is unbelievable. I mean, it is crazy that BYU is where they are. And number 19 in the AP poll, a bunch of teams lost. Don't be surprised to see BYU show up at 15th or 16th in the media poll as well.
Who cares about the media poll?
As long as they're in the top. Well, it puts their highlights on SportsCenter each night when you're a top 25 team. So that's fun.
Yeah.
That's how they designate that.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, it's KenPom just because it's so detail oriented.
Yeah. But, well, net is 2, and that's why net is mine. 1, you're higher, but 2, net takes into it. Net is the NCAA with Google combined to figure out, okay, what is strength of schedule, what is efficiency, what is margin, they do all this combination. It's what RPI should be in every other sport, but men and women's hoops has it. I love it. Both are awesome. To me, it's net because it's what the committee actually uses as the sorting tool to use when they're determining who's at large, what seed are they, Because number 2, like what if, I don't know who Houston plays this week, or, you know, if they play a little poorly, like BYU, there's a chance BYU could be 1 in this. Like there's a chance. Oh my gosh. And the fact that if BYU was number 27 in net right now, I'd be happy. Number 2, I'm over the moon, man.
Hey, Houston beat Utah, neutral site. If BYU wins at Utah, maybe that's enough to put the Cougars over the top.
They don't really tell us what goes into the, exactly, like the things I listed, but like we can't like figure it out ourselves, nor do I want to. I'm a nerd, but I'm not that big of a nerd. Like I'll watch all 3 Lord of the Rings probably in one day later this month, but I'm not that big of a nerd with those numbers. I didn't take a stat or math class at BYU, but I am so excited about what BYU basketball is doing because it continues to exceed our expectation game to game. And they've got a huge week. Evansville comes in tomorrow. You think automatic win. 7-1 team, top 100, got to show up. At Utah will tell us a lot about where BYU is now too. Because BYU has top 100 wins on the ledger, best of which is San Diego State. That's a quad 1 right now. NC State and Arizona State are quad 2 at the moment.
Wow. Well, BYU likely, if they can beat Utah, you can add another quad 1 win to the resume because Utah is going to be probably top 75 in net.
Yeah. The hope is that's a good one, yeah. You never know with Utah basketball.
The reality is if BYU beats Utah, they got a real shot to go undefeated in non-conference play and be ranked in the top 10 in the AP poll, as well as the net rankings and the Ken Pomeroy Index.
It's awesome.
This is amazing. All right, part of Mailbag Monday certainly is basketball and for BYU football in the transfer portal. But Mailbag Monday allows you to ask whatever it is you want to ask.
We said about BYU, so like I can't comment on like the engineering department, but go ahead. Yeah. It's mainly going to be sports, I think. But
all right. First question in from Mailbag Monday. David Blaine German on Facebook answers.
David Blaine.
For men's basketball, with Ken Pom and net ranking number 2, what, he asks? Setting expectations so high it feels like making the tournament has become the absolute minimum bar. Will it feel like a bad season if BYU only makes it to the big dance?
Meaning they don't get a good seed?
They just get in the big dance, like regardless of seed. Maybe it's a play-in game, whatever.
Yeah. The way BYU is playing right now, it's certainly setting expectations pretty high. What I don't want this to be is 2022 BYU football ranked number 12 early in the season, and then you end up in New Mexico Bowl and you're feeling like good, but not like great. BYU men's basketball, I got to see half Big 12 play before I really know what we should do here.
I agree with you.
I'm going to wait a hot second. Like, we got to get into February.
Iowa State did something that BYU is doing right now, but last year. Iowa State got off to a red hot start.
Crush it in non-conference.
Had quality wins in non-con. They were unbeaten. They were ranked in the top 15. And then they got to Big 12 play. Still a good team. Iowa State was a great team. They went 7-11 in Big 12 play.
Which is good, actually.
7-11. And they were a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament because of the great non-con with great non-conference wins, coupled with 7 Big 12 wins. Even though they lost 11 conference games, they'd still done enough on the resume to be a 6 seed. So
I would take this
That's
now.
Kind of what I feel like BYU was pacing for. An incredible non-conference, solid wins in the non-con.
And then I don't know what to expect. I'm not going to put a heavy burden of expectation on BYU men's basketball in that league. We don't know what it's going to be like to play in that
Sean Farnham
league.
told you last week that he thinks that BYU
7.
could have a winning record in Big 12 play.
I just want to see it play out. I'm not expecting anything. I just want to see what it's like. The way BYU's playing, it's awesome. I'm enjoying it in the moment. Let's see how this journey goes.
Anyway.
It does not mean that BYU is going to be a 1 seed. Like, number 2 in net, if you finish on Selection Sunday, you are a 1 seed. It is December 4th.
I know.
And we are having fun.
To answer David German's question, I think the minimum expectation for me right now is BYU is going to be a single-digit seed. Could be anywhere between a 6 and a 9, but it would be incredible.